Frank, you need to see the news now. Diana's voice was so sharp it startled me, and my game controller clattered to the floor. I quickly grabbed my phone and pulled up the trending topics on Twitter. Hashtag Manhattan socialite Victoria Sterling buys A-lister Leo Vance a yacht in a lavish public display of affection. Victoria Sterling is my wife. I'm the guy who married into the family fortune. When we got married, she promised me that even though I was the one marrying in, she'd be faithful for life. But after the wedding, Victoria was constantly in the tabloids with someone new, and every time she'd just say it was for business and call me petty for questioning it. I loved her, so I was willing to give up my career, even cut ties with my own family for her. I just never imagined she'd end up throwing millions at some young Hollywood heartthrob. I was about to close my phone with a bitter smile when another headline caught my eye. "You should see this too," I said to my mother-in-law, my voice full of sympathy. Diana, my mother-in-law, who was actually 3 years younger than me, picked up her phone, and her expression immediately soured. Hashtag Wall Street tycoon Arthur Sterling spotted watching the sunrise in St. Bart's with a new flame. Arthur Sterling was my father-in-law. Diana and I locked eyes, and in that moment, we made a decision. I'm done being the trophy husband, I seethed, shutting off my phone. Before, no matter how many tabloid rumors Victoria had, they were always fleeting, but buying Leo Vance a yacht was different. This was clearly serious. On top of that, I had just seen Leo's latest post on Twitter. He had posted a picture of Victoria sitting on a plush bed. It was only her back, but I recognized the distinctive, sexy dimples of Venus above her hips. Leo had captioned it, "My life is complete." I was about to hit like and leave a comment when Diana grabbed my hand. "If you make a scene, do you really think someone like Victoria will let you walk away unscathed?" Diana asked, furrowing her perfect brows. She was Victoria's stepmother, the young trophy wife Arthur had married 4 years ago. Even though she was 3 years younger than me, she was a lot smarter. I looked at her, confused. "So what are you suggesting, Diana?" Technically, she was my mother-in-law, but calling her mom always felt incredibly weird. Diana thought for a moment, her expression serious. "I have access to about $300 million. How much do you have?" "Maybe 50,000, I admitted, feeling a flush of embarrassment. There was quite a gap between the trophy husband and the trophy wife. Still, old Arthur must have really doted on Diana to give her access to that much cash. Diana considered it. "You create a huge distraction, a massive fight. While you do that, I'll move the money. Then, I'll get you out of here, and we'll disappear." "Okay," I nodded, then asked worriedly, "You're not just going to transfer the money and leave me behind, are you?" "Don't worry," Diana said with a sly grin. "I think of you as my own son, after all." The truth is, she and I got along really well. Victoria and Arthur were always busy. Between work and their endless social functions, they were often gone for days at a time. Meanwhile, Diana and I, the trophy husband and the trophy wife, were discouraged from making public appearances by the Sterling family. So Diana and I ended up spending the most time together. Being close in age, we had a lot to talk about. I have a goofy sense of humor, and she's bright and cheerful. So we just clicked. Besides, Diana and I had what you might call a life or death bond. Once, when Diana and I were out grocery shopping, we were targeted by some of the Sterling family's enemies. These guys came after us with knives, and I managed to wrestle 2 blades away from them. I fought them off, protecting Diana without any thought for my own safety, until the police finally arrived. After that, Diana treated me even better. But she also had a wicked sense of humor. So while she was taking care of me in hospital, she'd often joke, "Don't you worry, my dear boy. Your wife may be out running around, but your mom will always take care of you." That night, I was in the living room of our mansion playing video games when Victoria stumbled in, completely drunk. And the person helping her was none other than the young movie star, Leo Vance. When Victoria came in and saw me playing a game, she frowned. "Frank, is playing video games all you ever do?" Leo Vance chimed in with a sarcastic tone. "Frank's a lucky guy. All he needs is a sensitive stomach to live the easy life, unlike me, working like a dog for my career." That seemed to make Victoria even angrier. She shoved Leo's hand away and staggered towards me. "Frank, you never used to be like this. You used to be so driven. Look at yourself now. Are you kidding me?" She had the nerve to ask me that. I used to be a top executive at a tech firm, pulling in a 7-figure salary with stock options. "Wasn't it because of you, Victoria, that I quit? One word from you about being worried I'd cheat, and I walked away from my entire career. And now you're complaining that I play video games?" Before I could say anything, Leo walked over with a smirk. "Come on, Frank, give her a break. Victoria works so hard every day. You could at least pretend to be a little ambitious for her." He shot me a smug look and draped his arm over Victoria's shoulder. My eye twitched. Then I glanced toward the grand staircase and saw Diana give a subtle clench of her fist. It was the signal, my cue to start the drama. Fine by me. I had years of pent-up anger just waiting to be unleashed. I tossed the controller aside and grabbed the heavy, decorative wooden staff that stood by the sofa. All right, you pretty boy, I roared. You seduce my wife, and then you have the nerve to show your face in my house? Have a taste of this. Before Victoria or Leo could react, I swung the heavy staff and brought it down squarely on Leo's head. Ark, he screamed, collapsing to the floor and clutching his skull. I didn't give him a chance to fight back. As he opened his mouth to scream again, I jammed the end of the staff inside and gave it a hard twist. The sound of cracking enamel filled the air, and suddenly Leo's perfect Hollywood smile was missing several teeth. Leo snapped out his daze and started scrambling away on all fours, yelling, "Victoria, help me. Your husband's insane." Seeing him crawling away with his rear end hiked in the air, I charged forward and delivered a swift jab with the staff right where the sun don't shine. Yeah. Leo's screams hit a new octave as he clutched his backside, writhing on the marble floor. Victoria finally snapped out of her shock and rushed over, grabbing my arm. "Frank, have you lost your mind?" I grunted, gave the floor a few taps with the staff before pulling it back, and turned to Victoria. "Maybe I'm crazy. For years I've put up with your endless tabloid flings. But buy him a yacht? That means you're serious this time. You wouldn't have brought him home otherwise, would you?" "That's bullshit," Victoria screamed back. "It's not what you think. And right now, we're talking about the fact that you just assaulted someone. You need to apologize to Leo now." I let out a cold laugh. "So I heard him. I'm not apologizing. What are you going to do about it, Victoria? Call the cops? Have me arrested?" "You," she started, but the words died in her throat. Leo, still clutching his rear, wailed, "Victoria, call the police. You can't let him get away with this." "You shut your mouth." Victoria snapped at him. Leo looked completely stunned, unable to comprehend why Victoria wasn't on his side. I scoffed. "Leo, did you really think it was this easy to play games with the super-rich? I'm Victoria's husband. To protect the Sterling family name, she can't call the cops on me. You, on the other hand, even if I killed you right here, she'd have to cover it up for me, because a family like this can't afford scandal." Leo stammered, but he couldn't form a complete sentence. Victoria's silence was all the confirmation he needed. "Someone get him to a hospital," Victoria said, waving her hand dismissively. "Tell the press he was attacked by an obsessed fan." Once the house was quiet again, Victoria sat on the sofa, her eyes fixed on me. "Frank, how many times do I have to tell you? Everything I do out there is just business. It's all an act. Can you please stop causing trouble?" I pulled out my phone, found Leo's post, and tossed the device right in her lap. "An act? Does the act usually end up in a bedroom?" I sneered. Victoria picked up the phone, and the color drained from her face. She looked up at me, flustered. "Frank, it's not what it looks like. I just used his hotel room to change. I had no idea he would take a picture of me. Besides, I was wearing a swimsuit, wasn't I? Who's to say you hadn't just finished some other kind of exercise?" I shot back. Victoria gritted her teeth. "Frank, do you always have to assume the absolute worst of me? Do I?" "Victoria, for our entire marriage, at your request, I've kept my distance from every female friend I have. Hell, you even made sure the cat we got was a male. And you? It's always some new Wall Street prodigy, some tech billionaire, or a Hollywood pretty boy like Leo. When have you ever not had a man by your side?" As I confronted her, Victoria's face grew paler. Finally, she just asked, "What is it you want?" "What do I want?" I repeated. "I'm done being your kept man. I want a divorce," I said coldly. "Victoria, before I married you, I was a top engineer at a major tech company. If I decided to go back to work tomorrow, companies would be lining up to hire me." "A divorce?" she gasped. "Are you insane?" Victoria stood up, her voice suddenly soft and pleading. She took my hand. "Frank, let's go to our room. I can explain everything." Explain what? What was there left to explain? I wanted to rip my hand away and demand a divorce right then and there. But I knew Victoria had a dangerously possessive streak. If I pushed things too far, she'd never let me walk away clean. I had to stick to Diana's plan. Create chaos first, then play along. The goal was to keep Victoria's focus entirely on me. I also needed to make sure word of my little outburst got back to her father, Arthur. So, I let Victoria lead me back to our bedroom. Once we were in the room, Victoria went to her closet to get one of her special outfits. Whenever she made me angry, she'd put on a French-made costume, complete with a fluffy tail, and kneel before me, calling me master. Maybe it was because of the powerlessness I felt as a trophy husband, but I always found the role reversal incredibly satisfying. Even now, I could feel a stir of excitement. I couldn't help it. Victoria was stunningly beautiful, with a perfect body, and she knew exactly how to seduce a man. In my entire life, the only woman I had ever seen who could rival her beauty was Diana. "Master," Please don't be angry anymore, okay? Victoria, now in her maid outfit, knelt before me just like all the other times, rubbing her cheek against my leg. Master, you must have a lot of pent-up frustration right now, don't you? I took a deep breath and decided to let my body overrule my mind. A couple of hours later, I was leaning against the headboard, smoking a cigarette. Victoria was draped over me, completely spent. She snuggled closer and whispered, Master, are you still angry with me? I ignored her and picked up my phone. I sent a text to Arthur on iMessage. Mr. Sterling, your daughter is cheating again. She bought her new boy toy a yacht and even brought him home. I'm asking for your permission to divorce her. I'll walk away with nothing. I don't want a single penny. Who are you texting? Victoria asked, her eyes narrowing. I held the phone up for her to see. I'm telling on you. Don't think calling me master a few times makes this okay, Victoria. We are getting a divorce. Victoria stared in disbelief for a second, then let out a shriek. She scrambled on top of me, raising her hand to slap me. Frank, who the hell do you think you are? Even if I was sleeping around, which I'm not, you're the trophy husband. Your job is to put up with it. You want a divorce? You must be out of your goddamn mind. I caught her wrist and shoved her off me. Being stuck at home all day, I did more than just play video games. I worked out. And after that incident where I was nearly killed, I'd hired a professional combat trainer. In short, unless I allowed it, Victoria wasn't going to lay a hand on me. You hit me? She sobbed, looking at me in utter disbelief. Then she turned and ran out of the bedroom. Just then, a message from Arthur came through. Frank, you must have misunderstood. Victoria was just networking. By the way, I saw that news about me. Has Diana said anything about it? She hasn't seen it, I texted back. Arthur replied instantly. Good. If she does, please help me keep her calm. In return, I'll deal with Victoria for you. And just like that, Arthur summoned Victoria overseas. Meanwhile, Diana and I accelerated our plan to transfer the funds. But the Sterling family's reach was vast. Money alone wouldn't be enough to guarantee our escape. So Diana and I devised a plan. On a dark, moonless night, we joined a party on a yacht heading out to sea. Many of the guests on board recognized us. And, as we'd hoped, Leo Vance was there too. He had recovered from the beating I'd given him. Seeing Diana and me standing by the railing, Leo approached with a menacing look. Frank, you didn't think you'd get away with that, did you? Let me tell you something. Victoria will be mine eventually, and I'm going to take your place. Leo hissed at me in a low voice. Suddenly, Diana and I grabbed his hands and pulled him forward, making it look like he was pushing us. Leo, what are you doing? I yelled. I told you I don't care about you and Victoria anymore. Why are you doing this? Please, Leo, don't kill me. I screamed, drawing the attention of everyone on deck. Then, with perfect timing, I let myself fall backward over the railing. Diana did the exact same thing at the exact same moment. Splash. We hit the water. That night, a news story dominated Twitter. #Sterling family tragedy. Trophy husband Frank Miller and young wife Diana Sterling pushed from yacht by Victoria Sterling's lover, Leo Vance. Both are missing and presumed dead. In reality, the moment we hit the water, scuba divers were there to pull us deep beneath the surface. We had stashed diving gear down there in advance. Diana and I had both taken up scuba diving to pass the time. After all, we had nothing but time, so it was easy for us to evade the search and rescue teams. About half an hour later, we surfaced and climbed onto an abandoned pier. The pier was technically Sterling family property, but it had been derelict for years. When Diana and I were learning to dive, we used to come here often. We had even cleaned out a small maintenance shed to use as a resting spot. The room was tiny, with just a single bed and a toilet and shower head hidden behind a cloth curtain. Once we were inside, Diana and I bolted the door and then looked at each other and smiled. For both of us, the Sterling family had been a gilded cage. I had walked into it willingly for what I thought was love. Diana had done it because her parents were critically ill and she needed a huge amount of money for their medical bills, so she agreed to marry Arthur. For years, as the trophy husband and the trophy wife, we had played by the rules. But that didn't mean we weren't human. Get out of those wet clothes before you catch a cold, I said, already peeling off my soaked shirt. Diana quickly turned her back. It's a little cramped in here, isn't it? We're fugitives, Diana, not checking into the Four Seasons. I replied, exasperated. She hesitated for a second before finally shedding her own drenched clothes. Back at the mansion, I had always been careful to avert my eyes, and Diana always dressed modestly. But now, seeing her up close, I realized her skin was as smooth and pale as porcelain, and her figure was easily as incredible as Victoria's. Old Arthur had been a lucky man. Stop staring. Diana snapped, glaring at me. She grabbed her backpack and disappeared behind the curtain. I'm showering first, and don't you dare peek. Don't worry, I said. I'm a perfect gentleman. I pulled a t-shirt from my own bag, used it to towel off, and then lay down on the small bed. The light from the shower cast Diana's slender, graceful silhouette onto the fabric curtain. I told myself not to look, but my eyes were drawn to it, as if by a magnet. The sound of the running water only made me feel more flustered. Suddenly, I heard a loud thump. Diana had fallen. She cried out in pain. Frank, I knew she needed my help, but the thought of going in there now was mortifying. But we were on the run. There was no time for embarrassment. I rushed behind a curtain and found Diana sprawled on the floor. When she saw me, she tried to cover herself, but it was a futile effort. She only had 2 hands, and there was far too much to hide. I draped my dry t-shirt over her and knelt down. Put your arms around my neck, I said gently. Diana's face was so red it looked like it might burst, but she did as I asked. Once her arms were secure, I carefully lifted her and carried her to the bed. Where does it hurt? I asked, pulling the thin blanket over her. Diana wouldn't look at me, turning her head to the side. Everywhere, I think, she whispered. I'm not sure where the worst of it is. Is your back okay? I asked, concerned. A fall in a shower is no joke. I knew a guy in college who was nearly paralyzed that way. I don't know. Diana's voice was barely a whisper. But my tailbone, it really hurts. Try wiggling your fingers and toes, I instructed. She did, and seeing that she could move everything, I breathed a sigh of relief. I gently checked her legs for any obvious injuries, and when I was sure she was okay, I noticed her face had turned an even deeper shade of crimson. Good thing this floor is concrete and not tile, or that could have been a lot worse, I said, tucking the blanket around her. After resting for a little while, Diana felt better and urged me to go take my shower so she could get dressed. We spent the night in that small shed on the pier, and the next morning, we left in the inflatable boat we had stashed nearby. Diana was quiet and didn't say much to me. What happened last night was just too awkward, too intimate. Let's just say there wasn't much left to the imagination. I felt awkward too, though it wasn't really my fault. We eventually reached the mainland and switched to a car with fake license plates that we had arranged beforehand, heading for the next city on our route. The Sterling family had immense resources. Any tiny mistake could lead them right to us, so we had to be incredibly careful. We didn't dare risk staying in a hotel, so at night we'd find a secluded spot to park and sleep in the car. We kept up with the news online. The story about our disappearance was still a major topic on Twitter. Apparently, Victoria and Arthur had made a public statement saying they wouldn't believe we were dead until our bodies were found. Meanwhile, the A-list star Leo Vance had been arrested by the police for pushing us overboard. The tabloids had already linked Victoria and Leo, and my dramatic screams on the yacht had convinced everyone it was a crime of passion. I leaned back in driver's seat and let out a cold laugh. They've both already moved on, but they're putting on this big show about finding our bodies. Such hypocrites. Diana, reclining in the passenger seat, nodded in agreement. I finally figured out these wealthy families. Image is everything to them, even while they're doing the most despicable things behind closed doors. Exactly, I agreed. And when they do get caught, nobody calls them out. It's just treated as some glamorous scandal for people to gossip about. I pulled up Leo Vance's fan page on my phone and showed it to Diana. Look at this. It's all his fans trashing me. Our Leo and Victoria are the perfect couple. That Frank guy should just die. One comment read. Another said, what a disgusting freeloader. How dare he stand in Victoria's way? Diana read the comments and couldn't help but chuckle. It seems like people's morals are directly tied to how handsome someone is. Though, you're not bad looking yourself. Hey, I was the big man on campus back in college, I bragged. I had plenty of admirers. Diana rolled her eyes, but then her face flushed red as she seemed to remember something. I started, trying to clear the air. You don't have to feel awkward about, We're in a crazy situation. Diana shook her head. It's different for me. You and Victoria, no matter how much you fought, the entire mansion knew when you two were making up. But no one's ever seen me like that before. Wait a minute, I said, surprised. You and Arthur were married for 4 years, weren't you? Diana's face turned an even deeper shade of red. Arthur's health was poor, she said quietly. He had a bad heart, and the doctors warned him against any kind of strenuous activity. So, while I was his wife on paper, in reality, I was more like his live-in caregiver. Why else do you think he chose me? It's because I was a registered nurse. I had forgotten about that. Before she married Arthur, Diana had been a senior nurse at the Sterling family's private medical clinic. So you never even dated before him? I asked. Diana shook her head. I had plenty of crushes, but my family was poor. My parents were always sick, and my brother worked multiple jobs to put me through school and pay their medical bills. I worked constantly too, so I never had time to date. Besides, Dating is expensive. Don't laugh. But back in school, I had 2 sets of underwear that I wore for 3 years straight. Yeah, everyone's got their own struggles, I said with a sad smile. It wasn't so bad, Diana countered. My college roommate came from a much wealthier family, but they were old-fashioned and only cared about their sons. All her parents wanted was to marry her off to some rich guy. My family may have been poor, but my parents adored me, and my brother was amazing. He never even dated, so he could save money to pay for my tuition. By the way, I asked, a sudden worry striking me. Now that we've disappeared, will our families be okay? Diana shook her head. Don't worry, I've already taken care of everything. So, Frank, Diana said, changing the subject. Can you tell me about you and Victoria? I know you married into the family, but I never heard the story of how you two actually got together. There wasn't much of a story to tell, really. Back in college, I was pretty popular. I was good-looking and at the top of my class. Victoria, for her part, was the famous campus heiress from a powerful family. Normally, our paths never would have crossed. But one day, Victoria's roommate, who had a crush on me but was too shy to say anything, got Victoria to act as her messenger. She stood outside my dorm and yelled for me to come down. When I did, she handed me a love letter. The moment I saw Victoria, I was completely smitten. It was love at first sight. I've been drinking with my roommates, so I was feeling bold. I tossed the letter aside and said, I like you too. Victoria just stared at me, stunned. Before she could explain, I pulled her into an embrace and kissed her. A second later, she slapped me across the face. That's when I found out she was just delivering the letter for her friend. I was so embarrassed, I wanted the ground to swallow me whole. But after that, I couldn't get her out of my head. I started engineering accidental run-ins and trying to flirt with her very badly. Eventually, some of her wealthy friends cornered me and gave me a brutal dressing down. They laid out the details of Victoria's family background and told me I was a worthless nobody who wasn't fit to even speak to her. It was crushing. After doing a little research on the Sterling family myself, I realized just how vast the gulf between our worlds really was. So, after that, I stopped trying to pursue Victoria. I've always understood that people should stick to their own kind. Then, before I even graduated, I was headhunted by a major tech firm. They offered me a 7-figure salary and a generous stock package right out of the gate. I worked there for over a year and had a lot of success. One day, while I was in a meeting to secure a new round of funding, I saw Victoria again. We got the investment, and afterwards, she surprised me by asking me out to dinner. The truth was, I had never gotten over her, so I accepted immediately. My voice was actually shaking when I said yes. As we started spending time together, I learned that she had no idea what her friends had done to me all those years ago. She explained that she had started working at her family's company and had stopped attending classes regularly. She even told me she had been keeping an eye on my career and had tried to message me, but I had blocked her number. She said it had actually made her sad. To make it up to me, she called those same friends to a meeting and, right in front of me, slapped each of them across the face. After that, she was the one who pursued me. She was the one who proposed on the condition that I marry into her family. And I agreed. After I finished my story, Diana seemed a little wistful. So, you two really did have a genuine connection once, she said, a hint of sadness in her voice. I gave a bitter laugh. What difference does that make? After we got married, she went right back to doing whatever she wanted. Her idea of networking might be normal in her world, but it was never something I could accept. We came from different worlds. Our values were never aligned. So, do you think she ever actually cheated on you? Diana asked. I shook my head. It doesn't even matter anymore. We were just too different. What she saw as normal business, I saw as a betrayal. Every new rumor was like another cut, and eventually, the pain just turned into disappointment. The love died. I sighed. Honestly, even if Leo Vance had never come along, I probably would have asked for a divorce eventually. At least you two were in love once, Diana said softly. That's more than I had. I married an old man and lived like a nun. Arthur promised me he was done with all that at his age, he just wanted a quiet life with Mrs. Sterling. And then he goes and finds a new flame, Diana said with a humorless smile. We were two of a kind, a pair of jilted spouses, bonded by the same bitter resentment. After that conversation, things between Diana and I went back to normal. We spent our days talking and laughing as we continued our journey. After more than 3 months on the road, we finally reached the deep forests of the Montana wilderness. Diana's brother worked here as a park ranger. It turned out that her brother getting this job had been part of Diana's long-term planning. She told me she had started preparing an escape route years ago, knowing that her marriage to Arthur was never going to last. Life there was peaceful. We spent our days gardening and fishing. We learned to hunt the non-protected game in the mountains. Diana's brother taught me how to shoot a rifle, and he even crafted a bow for me and taught me archery. In private, He often asked me when I was going to make an honest woman out of his sister. The truth is, I wanted to, but I was afraid Diana wouldn't feel the same way. Besides, our former relationship as son-in-law and mother-in-law was still a bit of an awkward elephant in the room. Winter arrived. The winters in those mountains were brutal, like something out of Game of Thrones, a cold that felt like it could kill you. But inside our small cabin, with the wood stove roaring, it was always warm and cozy. We couldn't garden in the winter, of course, so we had stocked up on root vegetables like potatoes and carrots, enough to last us until spring. We had also prepared plenty of meat. The weather was so cold that we could just bury it in a snowdrift, which worked better than any freezer. One day, Diana's brother went down the mountain to stock up on supplies for the holidays. But while he was gone, a massive blizzard hit, blocking the mountain pass and trapping him on the other side. Diana and I were left alone in the cabin. The unspoken tension that had always existed between us finally ignited. One thing led to another, and just like that, 3 years passed in our mountain hideaway. Over those 3 years, we kept a close watch on any news about the Sterling family. Victoria had taken over the company, and Arthur was reportedly gravely ill. But even after all this time, the massive reward for any information about our whereabouts remained active. It didn't matter to us. Our families were safe and well cared for, and we had come to love our quiet, simple, and peaceful life. That was all that mattered. Then one day, a news story caught our attention. Leo Vance, the man we had framed, had just been released from prison. On the very day of his release, he went straight to find Victoria. The report said that he had stabbed Victoria over a dozen times. Knowing there was no escape for him, Leo then jumped to his death from the top of the Sterling Tower. When Arthur heard that his daughter was dead, the last bit of life left in him faded away, and he passed away. To be honest, the news hit me hard. No matter how much she had hurt me, I had loved Victoria for many years. To hear that she had died so violently was devastating. Diana was very understanding. "We should go back," she said gently. "Someone needs to handle their affairs." Yeah, I nodded. So Diana and I returned to New York City, to the mansion that had once been our home. As soon as word got out that we were alive, we were swarmed by people from the company and the media. My original plan was just to arrange the funerals and then disappear again. But greed is a powerful thing, and I decided to stay. We told the public that we had been in hiding all along, afraid that the Sterling family's enemies, the same ones who had attacked us years ago, would come after us again. After all, it was a matter of public record that we had been attacked by those enemies before. I still had the scars to prove it. Combined with the fact that Leo Vance had pushed us from the yacht, our story was easily believed. The Sterlings had no other living relatives. With Victoria and Arthur gone, Diana and I were the sole heirs to the entire family fortune. After we arranged the funerals, we took control of all their assets as a matter of course. I hired a professional CEO to run the company. Diana and I continued to live a quiet life, rarely leaving the mansion, just as before. But my decision to stay, born of greed, weighed heavily on both of us. We both felt like vultures, picking the bones of a family that had destroyed itself. Then, one day, I opened Victoria's personal safe. Inside, among other things, was a USB drive containing video files of her with her various lovers. There was also a medical report, and that's when I understood the horrifying truth. Victoria hadn't married me for love. She had married me because we both had the same rare Rh-negative blood type. I was her living insurance policy, a personal collection of spare parts she could use if her own body ever failed her. Later, Diana and I found Arthur's safe in the basement. Inside, we found more medical reports. Not just one, but several. It turned out that his new flame from the tabloids and several others were all people he was keeping on hand as his own personal organ bank. In that instant, all the guilt Diana and I had been feeling vanished completely. It felt like divine intervention. If they hadn't died when they did, we would have been the ones on the operating table. We finally understood why the two of them, despite their wild lifestyles, had been so obsessed with finding us. We weren't their family. We were their assets. In the end, through a strange twist of fate, Diana and I had become the last one standing. Over the next few years, we systematically sold off every last piece of the Sterling Empire. Then, we gathered our families, moved to a new city, and began our new life together.